Hi YouTube, it's Kathy and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up for October 15th through 21st. This week I read 2 books, I watched 2 shows, I watched 7 movies, and I listened to 1 book. We're back home, we made it. If you've missed my last 4 or 5 videos, I was on the road for about 4 weeks, and now I'm back in my own house, which is kind of nice. It also explains how I was able to watch so many movies this week because we weren't driving many hundreds of thousands of kilometers. The book I finished this week is What We Kept to Ourselves. This is a family saga about these 2 people who leave Korea and go to America to start their lives there. Eventually they have 2 children, and this book bounces around the timeline a lot, so we get to see them kind of in the 70s or 80s, and we get to see them in 1999, which is kind of the present of this book. And in the present time frame, we find out that the wife has actually been missing for about a year, and there's a dead body found in the yard that has a letter addressed to her. It becomes this whole mystery as to how these people are connected and what possibly happened to her and why she disappeared in the first place. This is one of those books that has a really interesting premise, but I was not super interested while reading it. I did enjoy some of the characters, I did enjoy getting to learn some of the backstory here and there, but this is one of those books where it took me a really long time to get through it because I was just never very excited in picking it back up once I had put it down after finishing a chapter or whatever. That being said, there is some queer representation, it also has immigrant representation as well as first-generation American representation, so all of that was interesting, but the story itself didn't really grip me as much as I really wanted it to. This week I also read the latest by Kate Leth, which is Mall Goth. This is a graphic novel about this girl growing up in the early 2000s. She has moved to this new place with her mother, and she's trying to figure out how to make friends at school, even though she's very guarded and doesn't really want to do that because she's got trust issues. And then also her mom makes her get a job at the mall. I didn't really know where this one was going, I just assumed it was about a goth that hung out at the mall a lot in the early 2000s because as you do. And this one ended up being really relatable to me because the main character is bisexual, which admittedly is something I didn't really understand about myself until I was 30, so I didn't really understand when I was a teenager, but here we are. Also, I thought goths were really cool, I thought the fashion was very cool, and I always thought it'd be cool to at least try it out. And then this character is also groomed by a man 2 decades her senior over Instant Messenger, and that's a little bit too relatable because somebody definitely tried to do that to me. Outside of that, we have really interesting characters. I enjoyed the art style, I enjoyed how the story went, and I think that you should pick this up if you're at all interested in anything I just said. On to the shows we watched. I finished the last 2 episodes of the 2nd season of Good Omens and finally got to the part that I knew was coming, although I didn't exactly understand how it would be coming, and now I'm just like, okay, this better get picked up for another season because I need to see how this situation plays out. This series is a fun romp. For those of you who actually watch more than like 6 episodes of Doctor Who, there's lots of Doctor Who references because of course Tennant was one of the doctors, and I just found this a really fun time. I also finished the last 6 episodes of the first and I assume only season of The Fall of the House of Usher, which is something I had started last week. Somebody in the comments of last week's video let me know that this is actually a compilation of 10 of Poe's works, and that's cool actually. I really enjoy that. This was definitely gory and it went to a lot of different lengths to do what we knew it was going to do, because in the first episode we knew that all of his children were going to die. We didn't know exactly why it was happening, and it was interesting to find that out. I believe in the last episode we finally got to see what that deal was and how that transpired. And it was interesting to see the different ways that their deaths were justified based on the types of people that they were. Once again, if this premise interests you, I definitely think it's worth watching. On to the 7 movies I watched. In truth, there was 8 because we rewatched Haunted Mansion, but I already talked about that last week, so I'm not going to talk about it again. The first one this week was The Blackening. This is a horror comedy a la Tucker and Dale vs. Evil or Cabin in the Woods, and it is very funny and of course very scary because you're trying to figure out who is trying to kill these people who are just trying to have a reunion in the woods in a cabin, and it's full of different references to scary movies as well as just references to our own real world and how that can be very scary sometimes. And if you love to laugh at your horror, I definitely recommend this one. For the first time ever, I also watched Gothika, which is a movie about a woman played by Halle Berry who works in a psychiatric unit and then all of a sudden finds herself as a patient there and charged with something she doesn't think she did, but can she trust her own memory? She then has to solve some weird goings-on to figure out what exactly happened. This also has Robert Downey Jr. and a very young Penelope Cruz. Then my roommate Megan and I also watched Megan, and truthfully we did talk through a bunch of this, mostly about how the main woman looks like Deb from Dexter but isn't her and isn't related to her in any way, and that's a little bit weird to us. But if you haven't heard about this one before, it is about this woman who actually works in animatronics. They're trying to create the newest big toy for the kids market, and they figure that this doll that can actually interface with the child that it belongs to is kind of the way to go. It's kind of a horror tale about AI because the doll becomes very, very possessive of her child and will do really extreme things because of this, and it becomes a whole Chucky situation, basically. Again, this is one we kind of talked through because we'd had some wine by this point, but I remember enjoying it while we were doing that. After that, we went on to watch Sherlock Holmes 2 because I hadn't realized that they'd actually made a Sherlock Holmes 2, again starring Robert Downey Jr., so there we are. Again, I remember basically nothing about this because we talked through it, but it's written in my list, so I need to tell you about it, and I guess this is a reminder to myself to watch it again because I don't remember anything about the plot of this one. Additionally, I somehow missed the memo that Clerks 3 is a movie that actually exists and came out last year. How I missed this, I don't know, because I'm a really big fan of the original and the sequel. My best friend and I actually used to watch the sequel like every week while we were living in Ireland, and we could probably still quote a ridiculous amount of it. In Clerks 3, we kind of pick up where we left off in Clerks 2 in that Randall and Dante own the Quick Stop now, and they work there. It's daily life. It's really nostalgic to see the certain shots that you saw from the first movie come into the second movie, that type of thing. But there are certain life circumstances that I didn't know were going to be a thing, and you should definitely just watch it yourself, especially if you are invested at all in any of the characters that you might have seen in previous Clerks movies, because a lot of them come back. I also forgot to mention that Elias is in this one, and he has such a character arc that is so fun to watch. And that was actually one of the most interesting things, like characters from the first movie that you don't expect to show back up because they weren't one of the main four guy characters show back up, and I really enjoyed that. I just also really enjoyed seeing Walt Flanagan in at least one role, and then knowing that the person that used to be the person that was like readjusting the milk in that one shot, I'm pretty sure that was Kevin Smith's mom, and I'm pretty sure that was replaced by Kevin Smith's kid because I'm pretty sure his mom is no longer alive. I take that back. It is his dad who has passed, and she was one of the auditioners, which is what I thought while I was watching the film. As for the plot of this, it gets really self-referential. There are moments of this that made me want to cry along with a certain character, and if you watch it, you will know which character I want to cry along with. And overall, I just very much enjoyed it. Upon finishing this, I also found out, because the service we were watching it on was like, more movies by Kevin Smith, and I went, wait, Kevin Smith directed a buddy cop film starring Bruce Willis? What? That movie is called Cop Out, so I also had to watch that. This is one of those rare movies where he didn't actually write it, but he's the director of it, and I feel like he maybe had a little bit of influence on a little bit of the script, because occasionally it does sound like one of his movies. But yeah, this is a buddy cop film between Bruce Willis and Tracy Morgan, and they go to do this big thing that they need to do, and it goes badly, of course, so they're suspended without pay for a month. But then, because of things in their personal lives, they decide to do some cop-type things anyway, and I'm sure that this didn't seem weird at all when it first came out over a decade ago. But watching it now, with the climate of actually watching what actual police officers do and realizing that often it's not great, that made this a little bit less fun to watch. I'm not blaming real life for me not enjoying this, I'm just real sad that real life is as bad as it is. Finally, we did a rewatch of What We Do in the Shadows last night. I had kind of forgotten that this was done in a documentary style, and I don't know why I forget that every time about it, and then I rewatch it and then realize that. It's just so funny, and seeing Taika Waititi and Rhys Darby so young, and then having to point them out to Chad because he doesn't know who's who, and then him being like, oh, those are the guys from Our Flag Means Death? Which reminds me I need to watch the second season because I'm pretty sure it's almost done now, which is when I want to watch it. As for the audiobook I listened to this week, that was In My Dreams I Hold a Knife. This is about this woman who is going to a 10-year university reunion and really wants people to think very, very highly of her. She's worked very hard to be noticeable, she's worked very hard to be successful, and she really wants that recognition. This is also going to be a weird reunion because when she was at university, she was a part of this group called the East House 7. They were very famous on her campus, but one of them definitely won't be there because she actually passed away while they were all in university, and her killer was never actually caught. Once she and these other people actually get there, the younger brother of the woman who died has actually been investigating this whole time and has some questions for them. This book takes place in the present, which is this whole situation, but then also you get to see them growing up, going to school together, the different dynamics between different people who dated, who broke each other's hearts, who was mean to each other. And all of this comes together in a culmination of who could have possibly killed Heather. This one was crafty and it had just enough misdirection that I wasn't actually trying to figure out who did it while I was listening to it. I was just listening to the story, which I always love when that happens, because if you're spending too much time going, oh, it has to be this, it has to be this, it has to be this, you're missing little details. And then, although sometimes you can be correct and it can feel really good to figure it out, sometimes it's really fun to just let the story speak for itself. That's it for this week. If you've read, watched, or listened to any of these, let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't feel like leaving a comment but want to make sure that I know you were here, just leave me an emoji or a smiley face if you happen to be on your keyboard. Some people have asked if there's a way to financially support this channel, so I set up a Ko-fi account, which is a digital tipping service. The link for that, as always, is down below. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I'll see you very soon. Bye!